Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Brenda Kilhofer. I am your Cheap Mama, and you are on the Cheap Mama Life podcast. And this is the first show of the new year. And I have been tossing ideas around for this first show for days. And I heard something the other night, and I don't even know where it was. I don't know if it was on the news or where I had heard it. And it was leading to the suggestion that as a country, we are all being hypnotized. And the comparison was that we're being hypnotized much in the same way as Germans were coerced or convinced or hypnotized, or however that the same tactics were intentionally being used to hypnotize us as a country. And it caused me to pause. And I am not suggesting that there is necessarily an evil empire out there that is intentionally hypnotizing you and I each and every day. And is it possible there is? Of course. So it caused me to stop and just kind of take a pause, do some research. And I think the reason that it caused me to do the research is because one of the things that I did recognize is, and I listened to a YouTube because I went and did some further digging and did a YouTube. And I didn't realize at the time I would draw this conclusion, but one of the things that has been weighing very heavy on my heart as we've kicked off this new year is just seeing the way we treat one another. And I know this isn't the first time that I've shared this sentiment on this podcast, but seeing the way that we as a whole are treating one another over the different social media forums and also even not in social media forums. So some of the things that had led me up to really kind of pondering that and then digging in more on this hypnotization thing is that, first there was a series over New Year's of just complaining about fireworks. And as a horse owner, I'm not a fan. And I'm certainly not a fan when there's big, huge blasts happening in my backyard. Now, I'm a fan of going and watching them for sure. I'll go to the ballpark all day long. I love a great fireworks show. But, in my backyard, because I have horses there that don't necessarily like big booms, not as big of a fan. And I love that we live in a country where we do have the right to use our property, our land, as we please. And I think that we also have a responsibility to those around us. So anyway, lots of folks putting their 2 cents in, and I would say in our neighborhood community chat type thing. And there must have been 4 or 5 different threads on this whole noise pollution thing. And I just remember being really deeply concerned and appalled at the arguing, and not just the arguing that was going on, but the name calling and the amount of hate towards fellow human being, no willingness to hear or see a different perspective. And of course, every single one of those arguments, would escalate into a decision or that person must be this belief system, or, and, so that was going on. And then I saw a kiddo a poor mama whose son had run away. And I mean, my heart broke for this mama. And I said so, right? I've been in, or, I've had my kids not come home right after school, or anybody who has teens. I mean, I've got one that at age 2, he would run away every time something didn't go his way. I don't know why he did it. It was kind of crazy. It was cute. It was silly. And of course, you watch them, you're not going to just let them go. And so I could relate to the fear that this poor mama must be feeling, because her kiddo was gone and had been missing for 4 or 5 days at that time. So I just responded, "Oh, you must be so scared to death. Please let me know, reach out, let me know how I can support you." And I started receiving all of these just very, very negative responses to that comment. And I thought, what did I do? So of course I reached out to the mom and said, "Look, I did not mean to offend you." And so there was that. And then I saw, yet another poor mama's like, "Hey, we need help finding these cars." There were 3 cars that apparently had hit her son, who was, in his mid-20s, and was walking along a road not too far from where I live. And 3 cars had hit this kid and left the scene, and left him to die. And so the point of all this is I thought, gosh, what? And then, and there was one other. There was a gentleman who was selling a lot of his belongings because he was short for rent, right? And I think with inflation, with jobs, with everything going on in the economy, there's a lot of folks out there that are struggling right now. And this gentleman was, "Hey, I'm trying to make rent for my landlord just raised my rent, and I'm trying to come up with enough to make sure that I pay it. Got my kids. Here's a bunch of stuff I have for sale." So he was actively working to do something about it. And God bless, another wonderful neighbor says, "Hey, you know what? If 10 of us," because he was short, I think $250. She's like, "If 10 of us donate $25, that he'd be taken care of." Because a lot of people were saying, "Hey, we just had Christmas. I don't need this. If I needed any of the things, I'd certainly buy them." And so there was just this onslaught of hate towards him, and how he was a scammer, and how and that type of thing. And so when I heard this hypnotization thing, I paused for a moment, and I thought, I wonder if there isn't something to that, because I've never experienced or seen our world as a whole in such a fight type of atmosphere, right? In fact, the title of this is going to be The Great American Cult, because so much of this behavior seems almost cultish. And so I started doing some research for this show to say, okay, well, what can I find out about, this type of hypnotization that occurs? Because my first exposure to the fact that, and I'm not going to use hypnotization, I'm just going to use the word programming. My first exposure to the fact that I was programmed to believe what I believed came shortly after 2008 in a seminar and I'm going to share a book from that, share some information from a book from that as well throughout today. But the statement was made that, 99% of the decisions we make are made by our subconscious, right? Well, what forms our subconscious, and how does it get formed? Well, in that seminar, I had learned that 1, repetition, 2, an experience. So the experiences that we have form our subconscious belief systems.
And of course, visualization, the things that we visualize, because our mind sees in pictures, they help to form that subconscious, if we want to make a change, those are the ways, having an experience, having, repeating something over and over again. And I further learned that, once we grasp an idea, right, that we're going to go and our subconscious, we're not intentionally going to go out there and find proof to justify that. And yet we do, right? And let's just step into my realtor hat, right? When I was working with a buyer or a seller, one of the things that I saw, and even for myself in real estate, buying my own properties, when you walk into the home that you want, that's an emotional decision. You fall in love with that home because of what it does for your soul. There's an emotion attached, whether there's a smell that evokes an emotion or whether the decorating evokes an emotion, but there's this, oh my gosh, this is it. I feel it, right? You have that emotion. And then what do? You go back it up with logic. Well, gosh, you know what? This is the best priced home in the neighborhood. Oh goodness, there's a store down the street that, is going to bring more, this is a fast growing neighborhood. Then we start to go back it up with logic, and we may see things that, that speak against that emotional decision, but we don't see them. We push those aside, and we only accept and root and justify that decision based on the things that, the evidence that we were able to gather that, okay, this is the right decision for you, whether it was truly logically the best decision or not. So, it kind of took me to just this whole, evolution, because years ago I stopped, as I've shared with you, stopped watching a lot of media. And I've been absolutely drawn in with from the onset of COVID back in 2019, right? And yet, because I hadn't looked for so long, there have been things that I've been able to kind of objectively see. The other thing that I think we tend to do, right, based on those two things, is we look for, because we're looking to justify our own belief, we go out and we find the media that agrees with us. We find the people that agree with us. I kind of feel like that's what might be happening out there as we are, falling into that social media trap, and we're seeing this comment and this comment and this comment and all of these negative comments. So I feel like what might be happening as a population, as we're in that social media and we're having these arguments, we're sparked to have this argument, or something triggers us. Now, all of these other people that kind of have that same thought or same belief system we do, they're jumping in and defending us, which now is rooting that belief system for us even deeper and deeper. While the person of the opposing belief system has folks jump into their defense, right? That, most of their friends, the folks that are on their website that are seeing it, they're jumping to their defense and rooting that belief system. And there's some great books out there like Psycho-Cybernetics, Think and Grow, a lot of different books out there that really kind of talk about some of the science behind the neural pathways that are created by a specific way of thinking, that are training your subconscious mind. So today, all of those things just sort of had me, all right, we need to talk about this on the show, right? Mamas, you need to, as moms, we need to understand what's forming the thought patterns that are happening for our kids and our marriages, right? We need to kind of understand one another, and our friendships, and so many of the friendships that are falling apart because we have these completely, totally different, diametrically opposed belief systems happening that, a few years ago didn't divide us, right? They didn't divide us. They didn't say, hey, you're not my friend anymore because, you don't want to get a vaccine, right? I mean, I have a teenager. Lots of us have teenagers. Gardasil is a relatively new vaccine. Maybe not now, but when my daughter was at that age that it was time where that was offered, it was a relatively new vaccine. And I was like, no, I don't think she needs that. I mean, what am I saying as a mom if I'm giving her a vaccine to prevent something she's going to get from having sex? Am I just saying, hey, go have sex, right? And I could go out in public and talk about the fact that no, we weren't doing that. I could have that conversation with my doctor that no, I didn't feel comfortable doing that right now. And it was no big deal, right? Nobody came to me and said, hey, you're putting my son at risk because, of dying. And let's face it, if that is truly a vaccination that prevents something that leads to cancer, I mean, cancer's definitely got a good ability to kill somebody, right? But that wouldn't divide us. I was like, oh, okay, no big deal. I hear you. I hear that. So why is it that today everything from fireworks to I don't know, to whether you take a test or you don't take a test, or you wear a mask, you don't wear a mask, you don't like this method of teaching, you do like this. It has all become this battleground, right? And so that hypnotization just really resonated and said, okay, let's dig deeper. So I did. And I listened to a YouTube, and there were two things that really resonated. And it was a psychologist counselor that is now an author, had used hypnotization as a tool in his practice for many years. And he was discussing, how you can plant a seed or an idea. You can hypnotize a group of people. In fact, it's very effective to hypnotization in groups is super effective, again, for that reinforcement factor that I just talked about. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And one of the things he talked about is that the wrongly used in that environment, it always leads to persecution. And it always leads to, so it leads to persecution, and it leads to, I don't know how you guys put up with me because I forget things all the time. And I do appreciate you all for staying, but persecution was one of them. And the other was along the lines of pain and anxiety, that kind of thing. And, we're seeing how our kids are more anxious than ever. They have more anxiety, and all of that, all of those conversations I just talked about, where, we have these social media about, it's just persecution. Like, oh my gosh, I said the wrong thing. I'm being persecuted for saying you must be scared. So that was what I really wanted to kind of bring forth. I wanted to share some of the things that I've learned. And of course, leave it up to you, audience, to decide, hey, is this impacting me? Is what I am listening to impacting me? Because my observation, my experience is that if I turn on this channel, and I'm not even going to pick channels or whatever. But if I decide I want to listen to a news type of commentary show or even the news on this channel, well, then as I listen to that station, I am going to hear, well, those insurrectionists, those supporters are racist, those that don't want CRT are racist and they don't want your child to exceed, and they this and they this and they that. And it's not, and anybody who doesn't believe the point that that commentary is making is being persecuted, right? And then, and they don't care about you because they won't wear their mask, or they don't care about you. They don't care enough to get a vaccination. They don't care about you. They hate you. And I actually hear those words on these stations, and then flip it the other way. And they're a bunch of sheep. They are trying to take away every freedom, every right that you have. They, the they is anybody who doesn't agree with that position. They want to make you sick. They want to, any number of things. They don't want you to have the rights. You give up this right. This is the hill that you have to die for, because if you give up this right, well, then you'll never have another right again. So there definitely is repetition happening. Can we at least agree that depending on, well, and regardless of where you listen, the same things are being repeated over and over and over and over again. And then we take them and repeat them over and over and over again in our own groups. And that's what this psychologist was saying, is that's why hypnotization in a group setting works so well, because if we make the suggestion to you and we make the suggestion to your friend whom you trust, or your fellow community member, or your teacher, or your other person in your church, and they agree and they repeat it, well, then that is creating that neuro pathway, that subconscious belief in your mind. And so I don't know if they're doing it intentionally or if it's just great TV. So it's being repeated over and over again because, hey, conflict and drama and all of these things bring viewers. It is, that is absolutely possible. And I'm open to that is all that it is. I'm also open to the fact that, maybe it could be more, maybe it could be more sinister. And at the end of the day, I don't know. But what I can be sure of, and what I'd love to find common ground with everyone out there, is that certain messages are being repeated over and over again. Some of those messages are consistent across all belief systems, and some of those messages are being repeated only to people who, for the most part, believe XYZ, and some messages are being repeated only to people who believe ABC. And then the ABCs and the XYZs fight, and they gather their friends, whether they mean to or not, simply because it's all out there in the open. Everybody sees it. If I had a disagreement with my grandfather when I was 6 years, when I was younger, the only people in that conversation were he and I. And what would I do? I would go tell my friends. I would say to my parents, I would say to my grandmother, I would say, well, Granddad said this, da, 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 da. And they would either reinforce what he said or they would reinforce what I said. And look at any child, right? Especially a teenager. Okay. If somebody has wronged you, you're not going to go to somebody who's going to say, yeah, you know what? I don't think they wronged you. I think you have responsibility here. Most of us don't do that by nature, right? Most of us are going to go to somebody who we know is going to reinforce our belief system. That's human nature, folks. So the moral of the story is, do you believe that these things, or the big question is, do you believe that we are getting specific certain messages repeated over and over and over again? And if you believe that, are you open to the truth of the matter that repetition is one way that we program our subconscious mind? Thus, this belief system of this mass hypnotization. Nobody's saying that they're causing you to behave a certain way, although if the more and more it's suggested that you do or think or believe a certain way, and the more reinforcement you get, can you then be conditioned to believe or behave a certain way? I believe we can. I believe that that is absolutely true. I believe it's happening. I believe it's been happening forever. I believe that most of us went relatively unaware because the information wasn't out there to teach us otherwise. Again, the first time I was ever exposed to this idea of any kind of programming other than this is just the way I am, was in a personal development seminar where I learned that my experiences, what had been repeated to me, the visions that I held within my mind, that all of those subconscious things that were going on for me were making all of my decisions. I wasn't truly sitting back, critically thinking through things, and using wisdom to make decisions. It was just simply my subconscious, my default way of showing up in the world, my default behavior, my default beliefs, most of which were formed before I was even 4 years old. And I learned that the way to change those belief systems, if those belief systems weren't serving me, was through visualization, visualizing a different way of being, of showing up, visualizing the goals that I wanted, repetition, listening to the same speakers and audios, or even repeating my own affirmations to myself on a daily basis, that those would create new neural pathways and change in my life, or having an experience that changed that entire dichotomy, that entire belief system, having a big experience. That's why, for many of us, a traumatic experience is why we show up a specific way. And so we are all in this huge pandemic experience together. And wow, why is it that experiences shift our belief system? Well, I'm going to suggest that experiences shift our belief systems because there's fear, right? That's the emotional involvement, right? We've got this huge emotional involvement. Is anybody running around spending a lot of time in fear, in the emotion of fear, right? So can we dig that line? So let's repeat something fearful and really ingrain that. Now you're in an experience with repetition, a very emotional experience. And we're seeing our kids lose as a result. We're seeing our kids having a tough time dealing with life in general. So, why the title, the cult, right? The big cult of America, or the greatest cult in America. I don't know. However, I end up titling this episode, but I'm going to suggest that for most of you, if a loved one came to you and said, "Hey, I just went to a meeting, and it was this company, and I'm not going to mention the name, but we all know what this company is. And they sell laundry detergent, and my God, it's going to change my life. And now I'm going to go to a meeting every single week, and I'm going to go out of town." And they started hanging around all of these new friends. What are you going to tell them? You're going to tell them that they've joined a cult. you're going to tell them to stop drinking the Kool-Aid, right? By the same token, and that in that environment, maybe you don't like the change that you're seeing in them, but they are listening to, they're listening to the same messages over and over again about how successful they can be. They're listening to messages that tell them that they can have anything, and they begin to believe that. And so those messages can alter and change their behavior, can help them have more success. And some of us enroll in these things intentionally. Some of us are like, our other things of, oh, no, that's bad, that's a cult, will keep us from employing those same strategies for our good. So if we can recognize, and then let's take it another step. Let's say, your friend starts going to a new church. Maybe it's a different church than the one that you went to, or maybe you're not a church goer and now they're going to church, and they're coming to you and they're talking about all of these things that have just changed their life and how amazing it is and how wonderful it is. And you're like, okay, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Why are you listening to these people? You're not thinking for yourself. You're just repeating what you're hearing. And now all of their friends are in that environment. And or your reality could be completely different. You could be saying, wow, man, look at so-and-so. They're changing. They're growing. Oh my gosh, look at how amazing their marriage is. Look at how much better of a mom she is. And she's become that because of the messaging that she's getting there. Because of the message that's being reinforced by the people that she is now hanging around with. So if we can accept that can happen in a church, that can happen in a business environment, or even in a company that we work for. And if we can accept that, hey, when our teenage kid goes out and hangs out with Johnny that is smoking and drinking and breaking into cars at night, that person's going to impact or affect our child. If we can buy into the fact that those suggestions have the ability to change behavior, then why can't we accept that what's being sung on the radio, what's being shared on the news, what's being highly posted on social media isn't doing the same on a much, much larger scale? We're going to take a break, and I'm going to come right back, because I'm not here to, okay, here's this big, huge problem. Now what? Let's talk about what we can do to impact change, what we can do to change it, to guard ourselves, what we can do to create our own belief systems that serve us, and how can we go and help others do the same. So we're going to hear from the sponsor. I'll be right back, and we will have some conversation about that. And as always, I'm Brenda Kilhofer. I'm your cheap mama.
Hey, can we stop and allow me to be very frank with you guys very quickly about Aruka.com? You might be wondering, what the heck is that? Maybe you wanted to be a healer of your community, or maybe even within your own family for your loved ones. That was me once upon a time. Maybe you want to even make an online profitable business out of it. Well, this is your opportunity. I got a chance to talk personally with the founder of Aruka. And if you are interested in becoming a health coach, a naturopath, herbalist, or nutritionist, you will get the right program for studying holistic healing right here with Aruka.com. Go check it out. Wonderful testimonials that I got a chance to preview. I got a chance to learn the ins and outs, the backstory as to why this got started. One person from the founder of Cobb and Bell says about Maya, who is the founder of Aruka, says that she believes in the intelligence of the body as well as its capacity for self-healing. That's something we need right now, in today's time with all that's going on. We know that pharmaceutical drugs are very harmful for the body. Doctors and dentists sometimes, can, they mean real good, but we need people who are able to heal themselves and others. So that might be you. And if that's you, go visit aruka.com. And when you get over there, tell them that I sent you, Marcus Hart.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. I'm Brenda Kilhuffer. I am your cheap mama, and we are discussing mass hypnotization, or really just the programming that we are potentially receiving that is impacting our behavior each and every day. And how do we shift? How do we make a shift? Because I'm tired of this tape playing. I don't know about you guys, but this tape started playing early 2019, and it has gone on all the way through 2019, all the way through 2020. We're going to be coming up on 2 years of this tape playing over and over again, and the fear and anxiety mounting for almost everybody as a result of this tape playing. And that fear, that anxiety is keeping people out of jobs. It's keeping people out of work. It's keeping people from making money. It's paralyzing some people. It's keeping our students, our children, our kids from learning. It's keeping our graduating high schoolers from making a decision on, what do I do? Where do I go? What's, all of this fear that I'm hearing about. Gosh, do I want to be away from home when this happens? It's paralyzing much of the nation, right? We're kind of stuck in this rut, and the more repetition is that rut gets deeper and deeper and harder to get out of, right? If you have a rut from the bicycle in the mud and people keep doing that rut, it's going to get harder to get out of. So how can we start? One of the things that at the very beginning of the show, I talked about sort of all of these different little social media things that I saw that really impacted me and made me see just how mean people were being. So the first step for me was, all right, if I'm not going to put something out there that's positive, I'm going to refrain. I'm just going to zip my lips. If there's a way to share something that's positive, not because I am guilty. And mamas, who else out there? I bet you guys, ladies, gentlemen, I bet many of you are guilty of, well, let's share something in righteousness. Let's tell them how to be positive. No, I'm not talking about saying, hey, y'all stop being so negative and start being so positive, because there's plenty of those posts out there as well. Right. And now you're in that persecution that we talked about earlier, that condemnation, that judgment of the other human being who now they're being made wrong for having that negativity. So I said, you know what? I am just going to start to reframe the negativity. And so a perfect example I will give, when the New Year's thing came out, it was like, hey, I acknowledge it. My horses are out in the backyard. We stood with them for a couple of hours. They're anxious. They're nervous. Well, I guess I got some free desensitization training. Haha. Right. Not, and rather than further argument or further plead the case, how about, what if we just, what can we do? Same thing with that. Mama, what can I do for you? Because guess what? There were a lot of people out there, with judgments about the son, judgments about the family, because he had run away. Something must have gone wrong. What about Gosh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. How can I support? How can I help? In fact, if these platforms are meant to bring neighborhoods and neighbors together, I said, are you going to have flyers? Can I help put flyers up for you in the neighborhood? How can I support you? Right. What about hey, happy new year, everyone. This is me and my family. I don't know you, but we live in the same neighborhood. I hope you have a great day. Have a happy new year. When the gentleman was being condemned by others as a scammer, I just looked for the good. Hey, you know what? I want to acknowledge you for being solution oriented and getting out there and selling some of those things. Some of those things look like they really mattered to you. So I want to acknowledge you for being solution oriented and solving that problem. Your kids are really going to learn a lot from this experience and look up to you. Are going to look up to you and learn from the behavior, the example that you've set for this experience. And you know what? I just want to encourage you because it will get better. You're doing all the right things. Isn't it? We want to affect change, reinforcing the positive things that people are doing versus persecuting them for the situation that they're in, because we all make mistakes. We all have things that, how many times have you said, man, if I knew then what I know now, I would never have made that mistake, right? We all grow in wisdom and learning as we get older. The other piece of it would be is I would just truly invite you to stop and listen. Take some time to watch something on a network that maybe isn't the network. If you're a television watcher or you're if you are somebody who watches the news, take some time to listen with an open mind. How do we gain wisdom, right? How do we gain discernment? Well, we don't gain it from hearing the same message over and over and over again. That doesn't teach us to discern anything. That doesn't teach us how to critically think through a solution. It doesn't help us. However, if we are able to stop and take the time to say, hey, that person said a lot of things that I do believe. Now, I may not necessarily believe the person they say caused it. I don't necessarily believe that that's why we have the problem. But you know what? I can agree with that, because I'm going to suggest, friends, that we have so much more common ground with those people that we don't think we have anything in common with. And if we started talking about the things that we have in common, we can take that gap, and move forward. I have an opportunity. I don't know if I'm going to be on the television show or not, but I have an opportunity to where I will be recording for a network series, a network show episode with somebody that I really don't agree with in principle. However, there are a lot of things that he says that I absolutely 100% agree with. So by sharing what we have in common and talking about our differences, not fighting to make the other person wrong, but hey, this is what I believe and why. Tell me what it is you believe and why you believe that. And then give one another the opportunity to marinate on it, to consider, because I would say in almost every single argument, in every single challenge, You have your truth, I have my truth, and somewhere in the middle is the truth, is the absolute truth. And by being able to share one another's perspectives, because remember, those perspectives came from listening to this message over and over and over again, and having it reinforced over and over and over again. I'm not talking about the news. You know what? We're going to use a simple message, right? If you've ever dealt with a weight issue, right? What, as a woman, one of the messages I said to myself over and over and over again was, I am so fat. I am so fat. Every time I look in the mirror, oh my gosh, I'm getting so fat. Oh my God, I look awful. Oh my gosh, I'm so fat. I didn't even realize that that was a tape recording playing in my brain until I saw a picture of a time I thought I was fat. I'm like, oh man, I look good there. I wish I want to look like that. And I was like, I thought I was fat then. So, take it away from all of the politicization, whatever, I can't say it. Take it away from that and just take it to some of the simplest things. I can't sing. Anybody ever said to yourself, you can't sing? Well, if you've said it enough, you absolutely can't. Not because you truly can't, but because you believe you can't, right? I can't do that. I can't run a mile. I'm too this. I'm too pushy. If you've had that message reinforced enough times, that's going to be your come from. What if somebody else could offer a different perspective, and you just listened with an open mind and thought, what if I truly could be seeing it based on this repetitive message I'm playing rather than what it is for itself? If they can see it for this, why can't I? And maybe you never will see it there, but maybe you can honor the human being on this side that sees it another way. And if we can begin to honor one another and honor our differences, I think we can start to impact change. So maybe next time, again, from a solution standpoint, instead of arguing for your point, say, hey, tell me more. Why is it you believe that? I genuinely like to know. And be open to learning, be open to knowing, because you know what? If we're not learning and we're not growing, we're decaying. So that there's another solution. And I think also being mindful. I mean, the number one thing, how about you just turn it off? What if you were just to take a media, shutdown for, I don't know, 1 month straight, to a week? What if you just shut down the noise and truly just sat in silence and says, do I really believe this? Is it really possible that everybody on this side of the political spectrum is trying to do this, and everybody on this side is trying to overtake the government and do this? Or is it possible that they all want the same things? They just disagree on how to get there. And what if this person that's speaking really does, in his heart of hearts, believe that is the best course? I wonder why he believes that. What information has he or she looked at that I haven't that makes them believe that? And then digest that information, seeking truth, seeking what resonates for you. So that would be my number one suggestion. Let's just ask. Let's just walk into 2022 and with a spirit of believing that the person on the other side of every conversation really is just another human being who wants what's best for their child, who wants what's best for future generations, who wants what's best for their family. who wants to be healthy, whole, well, who genuinely desires at their heart of hearts, all of those things. And that there have been messages and perspectives and experiences in their lives that have caused them to see the path to that very differently than you see the path to that. But at the end of the day, if the two of you were to come together and say, this is what we want, this is what we want, a world where dogs aren't abandoned, and they're not overbred, and children aren't in foster care or aren't victims of sex trafficking, or drugs aren't on our streets, people aren't committing crimes, there's enough resources for everybody, and we both we want an amazing environment, right? Because I think at the end of the day, we all want those things. We disagree on how we get there. Can we find common ground ways that make more sense to get there? Possibly, but not if we keep arguing about it, and not if we keep seeking to only reinforce the one message that the folks that we currently resonate with are giving us over and over and over every single day. Yes, listeners, I believe we're being hypnotized. I believe we are being programmed. I believe we have very, very different belief systems out there, and people who likely have the best of intentions for wanting their belief system to prevail. And at the end of the day, whether they are intentionally using repetition, intentionally using fear, intentionally using these things to elicit a certain response or behavior from us, or it's just as possible that they're just so passionate about what they believe they can't stop repeating it. They can't, they're subconsciously, unconsciously using fear and those things to convey that message. I believe that's wholly possible too. So if we just could take 2021 and approach it as if the world has good intentions. And when we feel like somebody doesn't, clarify, ask. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But at the end of the day, those of us with good intentions, regardless of whether or not we agree on how to achieve the result that we all want, if we're truly good intentioned and we come together with a spirit of solution, I believe that we can stop. We can push stop on this recording that's dividing us in every way, shape, and form. So anyway, blessings to every single one of you for 2022. I'm excited for what's coming. We are going to start diving into setting and achieving goals. I have somebody who's a guest coming up. I can't wait for you to meet. And we're going to talk about, for all of those of you with small-based businesses, home-based businesses or big businesses or things like that, this trend in marketing that is using exactly this politicization, whatever. I'm not even going to say it because it's not working for me right now, but using their political position or a political position to sell their brand. That is going on right now. So we're going to have a conversation with a wonderful woman by the name of Belen who does that. I'm hoping to have some get into some of the challenges for those of you who have sons or teen boys or husbands, or know a guy, right? let's start, we're going to talk about some tough subjects this year, the issue of pornography and addictions to pornography and things like that. So I am really looking forward to 2022. I want to thank all of you for keeping me around. Do you know that we recorded over 40 episodes last year? So I'm not going anywhere, folks. If you would like to be a guest on the show, I want you to email me at brenda@cheapmamalife.com. And we will get you some information on scheduling an appointment or a consultation to do that, or visit the website, cheapmamalife.com. And got more books coming. 2022 is going to be an epic year for every single one of us. So welcome to it. I'm excited to see you there. Excited to have you listening, and I hope to have you on the show. Or if you have a topic that you want to have discussed, or somebody you want on the show, reach out, let me know. We've got some big plans for this year, and we are still planning. Anyway, you have a great life. Have a great day. Make it perfect, or don't make it perfect, but make it the best day. Make today better than yesterday.